there, it's Joe Sonically Disruptive. So I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time to discuss one of my most anticipated new releases of 2019, and that is from the band Big Wreck and their new record, But for the Sun. This record was released about a week ago, August 30th, and has gone largely unnoticed in the United States, and that's unfortunate. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the band, they had a taste of success and a moment back in the late 90s. And apart from their home country, Canada, went under the radar and were forgotten about. They did have a long hiatus, and back in 2012 they reformed and put out stellar album after stellar album. So in 2012 they put out Albatross, a couple years later Ghost, a couple years after that Grace Street, and these are all phenomenal records. And that brings us up to the current release, But for the Sun. Now, just a few months prior to the release of this new record, one of their co-founders and guitar players, Brian Doherty, passed away. So one may expect this record to be a very somber affair, and that's not really what you get. This is a heavy record, but it's very life-affirming and it's very positive in many aspects. Now, one of the things that I think Big Wreck do so well is they have this ability to be able to combine very technical aspects of music with very raw emotion. Something that is difficult to do and not many pull it off well. You can have many bands that are crazy good players, but they just don't hit you emotionally. You can have other bands on the opposite side that are all raw emotion, but really are not proficient musicians. Big Wreck do both so well. And that's what you get on this record. This record hits you hard and immediately with the song Voices, and it has this kind of classic Big Wreck riff right at the beginning, and in many aspects sounds straightforward, as Big Wreck songs do oftentimes. And it isn't until further listens where you kind of get all the nuance and all the other things happening around this basic kind of through line that they're giving you. And throughout this entire record, that is kind of what's going on here. You hear it and it strikes you and hits you immediately, but then with each subsequent listen you get more and more out of it, as more of the nuances and the textures kind of find their way into your ear and into your consciousness. The record gives you a very rich listening experience. The standout tracks here are literally every song on the record, and that may sound a bit grandiose, but it's very true. Each song here is memorable and stands apart from the song prior to it. So they are all separate entities, but in combination it makes for a very cohesive listen as well. But if I had to give you a few Voices, which I spoke of before, Give Us a Smile is just devastatingly beautiful, heavy, emotional, raw. It has this guitar solo at the end that is breathtaking, and it's an amazing song. Help Is on the Way. You got this really huge drum sound, this very kind of eerie ambient sounds going through it in some spots, and it morphs and changes along the way, as all of these songs do. Excellent song as well. I think sometimes Chuck Keeping, their drummer, goes unnoticed and overlooked oftentimes, but he is hitting the drums really hard here. There's some really tasty fills and some very nuanced, complex playing here. Excellent. Dave, their bass player, is a phenomenal bass player. Anybody who has ever taken a look at their live videos would see that he is excellent and has just superb bass lines throughout this record. Now, oftentimes the guitar is dropped so low that sometimes it's hard to distinguish the bass line from the guitar. That would be one of my little complaints. I like to hear Dave's bass playing more pronounced than I did through songs on this record, but that's a small nitpick. The whole package here is excellent. And Ian Thornley, of course, if you are familiar with Big Wreck at all, you would know that this guy is one of the best players out there right now, or ever. I mean, just a phenomenal talent, a phenomenal writer, great voice. I mean, he is the most underappreciated musician I think we have today. And that's saying something because there are a lot of really underappreciated musicians. But his ability to bring out this emotion and this emotive, melodic style combined with his ability to shred as well as anybody else is staggering. And as a guitar player myself, it's disheartening in many ways because I have no idea how he does it. So, it's not fair. It really isn't. But getting back to the record, this record combines everything Big Wreck has done in the past with their more current offerings, such as Grace Street, and puts it together so tastefully that if I were to give this a rating, like a 1 out of 10 or whatever, 10 being the highest, it's got to be a 12 at least. Killer record, one of my favorites of the year. I highly recommend this record and I highly recommend this band for anybody who isn't familiar. If you like guitar playing, you gotta listen to this. It's mandatory listen. If you're a fan of rock, if you're a fan of progressive rock, you can be a fan of progressive metal. This translates very well to any of that. If you're a fan of great music, check it out. Big Wreck, But for the Sun, great music. Thank you for watching. See ya.